Gone are the days of weak, feckless, America-last leadership from the Oval Office. The American people are sick and tired of the radical left forcing its woke policies into every facet of our lives.
Worst year in American history for illegal border crossings.
It is inhumane to have a border open like this.
President Donald J. Trump is working tirelessly to implement the America First policies that you demanded. And I'll be by his side all the way.
Biggs, where's Andy? Boy, oh boy, here's a guy. It's tough.
America's golden age has arrived. It's time to make America great again.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to What's the Biggs Idea? I'm Andy Biggs, Congressman from Arizona's 5th Congressional District, and we're delighted that you join us for my semi-regular podcast. I have an incredible guest today. She's not only a great friend of mine, a great friend of this great country. She currently serves President Trump and the American people as Director of the Office of National Drug Control Policy, commonly known as the Drug Czar. But she is great. She's doing everything she can to stop the trade of illicit drugs and stop the trafficking that goes with it. She's been implementing the president's national drug control strategy. She's worked with the federal, state, local, and tribal leaders to try to get dangerous drugs out of American communities. As the drug czar, she's also dedicated to serving the American people, protecting families all across the country. And you know her because prior to her current role, she was a Fox News contributor. Her reporting included frontline coverage of the Afghanistan and Iraq wars and the ongoing war on terrorism. Her investigations on the U.S.-Mexico border uncovered secret tunnels, narcotic trafficking routes, and the involvement of Mexican federal officials in the drug trade. She has 6 children, and she's married to Marty, her war hero husband, who is incredibly long-suffering and great. And so I'm so delighted to have you here. Thanks for coming with me today, Sara.
Oh, it's so great to be on with you, Congressman. It's nice to see you. It was great being in Arizona with you.
Yeah.
It's great being here in Washington, D.C. with you, where you and I can fight a different kind of cartel.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
But it's a constant battle.
That wasn't even part of our script, but I mean that's really that's really a little bit about it because before we came on, we were talking about. You're trying to implement policy to stop drug trafficking. You're trying to implement policy to stop the spread of fentanyl. And we know, like in Arizona, you came out and we had families come in, angel families. They had all lost someone close to them due to cartel activity, illegal immigration. And, you know, I just wanted to get your idea. You talked with tribal leaders, you've talked all of this, you're just doing all this. Tell us a little bit about Arizona specifically, if you can, and then I've got a couple of questions about that.
So first and foremost, the angel families to me are the whole reason why I'm here, right? I'm a mom, I've got 6 kids, you all have children out there that, you know, you would give your life for. There was nothing that could stop a parent from wanting to do everything in their heart to save their child. And sometimes, no matter what we do, we just can't.
Yeah.
And that loss is so great. I can't even imagine. So when you have angel families out there, despite suffering the worst loss imaginable, their greatest treasure, I always say, I'd give up my home, I'd give up everything I have, I'd live on a street, I'd live in a cave if it would help my child. But despite losing that most precious gift, they're out there fighting. They're saying, I want to save your kid. I don't want you to end up like me. I don't want your child to, experiment with drugs and then find them later in their room, 12, 13 years old, laying in their bed dead, with no hope to save them. So I think to myself, and Arizona families that were there, that were coming out to speak to both of us and to talk to us, if they can get up every day and fight that fight, then I better get up, by God, and get up and fight the fight too. right? It's about every single one of us. So that's the way I think about it. When I think of the Tribal Council, wow, the Interagency Tribal Council of Arizona. I hope I'm remembering their full title. What wonderful roundtable we had. We were able to sit with the tribal leaders, talk to the experts in the medical field, find out from them, like, what are their biggest concerns? What are they most worried about when it comes to crime and narcotics and their children? And what can we do as an administration, right, to help them move the needle so that there is a reduction in deaths, first and foremost, that we hold the people who are trafficking the drugs, most of which are coming from outside the tribal res, right? They're moving them through their... Look, this is about every single one of us, whether the cartels are trying to poison our children or get them addicted, whether they are trying to recruit them into gangs and make them a part of this nefarious, insidious life, which almost always ends two ways, either in death or jail. We have a responsibility as a nation and as families and as communities to stop that. And so I think for me, being in Arizona, where we actually saw an increase for us, which is, we're seeing it in a few other states too, in fentanyl poisonings and death. That was why I was there. We are not burying our heads in the sand. I'm not an ostrich. I'm not going to pretend like it doesn't exist. We're seeing the death rate go down in the United States, but we want it to stay down. And that means paying attention and getting out there and working with you and working with the American people to ensure that that stays down.
Yeah, I appreciate you being out there because just for folks, you need to know we had this roundtable town hall with the tribal council, and they brought in a lot, as Sarah said, that we had police agencies there. This was just a great opportunity for them to tell the drug czar what's going on, and so that was fabulous. And then we followed it up with the very poignant meeting with the Angel families, and we toured the DEA facility in Phoenix, which is an amazing place, and they need a little bit more resources because they're kind of overwhelmed. But when I think about it, I want to touch on something you just said because this has really struck me. Most states, in fact, the vast majority of states, you're seeing a reduction in the fentanyl overdose death. But in Arizona, we have a spike. It's gone up, and we're now kind of leading the nation in those deaths. And I'm wondering, in all the stuff that we were talking about, and the people we talked to, whether it be on the tribal side or DEA side, or Angel families or the community leaders, do we see why this is happening?
It's the biggest question, right? And it's the reason I was down there. We're working very closely with our office. We're working with HHS, CDC, trying to understand and pinpoint what is happening, what's different that we're seeing in Arizona, New Mexico, actually Colorado. What is different about these states that is causing these deaths and poisonings, right? Is the fentanyl stronger, the levels of fentanyl in the pills that are coming through, right? Which is a huge deal. Are we seeing more usage? Are we seeing less maybe education for our children, understanding that these pills are out there? There's a lot of pills too that was, to me, was fascinating with the DEA. When you see this polysubstance pill, right? Where it's like, and for everybody out there, please understand, you have to protect your children from this. You have to tell them that, and family members, that you cannot take anything unless it is prescribed to you by a doctor, because you literally are playing Russian roulette with your life if you do. These polysubstance pills contain everything. They were able to test them, and they had meth, they had metatomidine, they had fentanyl. So it was like somebody who's not a chemist takes all of this stuff, puts it into a bucket or wherever they're mixing these pills, and they're just mixing everything, and they're putting out pills that are literally death traps. There is no way to survive. some of these pills that are out on the streets, these fake pills. So we are looking into that. Our office now is working very closely with the intertribal agencies and making sure that we're sharing information and data so that we can get warnings out earlier. We have what we call HUN alerts for the first time with the Office of National Drug Control Policy is working with CDC to issue out these alerts to doctors and first responders so that if we see in the wastewater testing, and this is, I think, one of the things I'm most excited about is our emerging threats. We see a rise in medetomidine. We see a rise in fentanyl. We see a rise in meth. Anything in the wastewater that shows there's a spike, we are immediately alerting the hospitals, the first responders, and our law enforcement so that they are aware of what's on the streets and they can send out a warning and we can save lives.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. DEA was amazing. I'm glad you guys are taking those steps because this is an all hands on deck kind of thing where you have to make sure first responders, the hospitals, everybody needs to know about it. I would suggest even the governor needs to know about it. But I'm just suggesting that. But here's the thing to understand. When this really struck me, they were showing us like 1 grain could be fatal of fentanyl. Mm-hmm. 1 grain of fentanyl, a full grain of fentanyl could be is fatal. And then they said 1/100th of that now of this new analog of fentanyl is actually fatal. You go, what do you mean? You can't even. How do you detect that? And they're pressing these into pills that look exactly like.
They look Percocet, oxycodone, Adderall. You think when you look at it, and I've actually been shown these pills, like comparison between a fentanyl pill and an oxycodone or a Percocet, and I can't tell the difference. Or Adderall. And think about your kids. They're on social media apps. They're looking at stuff on the social media apps, and these drug dealers and these cartels operate in very insidious ways. So they put out advertisements for Adderall because they know kids want Adderall, right? Because they think they're going to do better on exams. They think they're going to be more focused. It's very competitive now. So they'll put it out there like, hey, I can get an Adderall delivered to your house. Here's a couple of Adderalls, 2 Adderalls for however much. And when you're 13 and 14 years old and you're not wise to the world and you're making dumb decisions as kids sometimes, they order these pills thinking that it's Adderall and what gets delivered to the house is actually poison and they die. So that's how serious this is. It is a national security issue. We work very closely with the DEA. I have a really close relationship with Administrator Terry Cole. I know how important that is for him to ensure that these pills are off the streets and that we're constantly staying ahead of the cartels. But, it's tough. We need everybody on board. It is all hands on deck, Congressman. It's not just whether or not the United States government can protect the American people. It has to be empowering the American people to protect themselves, their communities, and their families.
Yeah, and to that end, the administration just announced $277 million in additional HIDTA money, the largest investment in the program's history. Tell us a little bit about that program and what that money can help facilitate.
Well, with Arizona, for example, over $13 million goes to your high-intensity drug trafficking areas. And these joint task forces, so to speak, with DEA and FBI and ATF and everybody working together can utilize the information that they have by sharing intelligence to target the cartels that are operating in these areas, which we consider high-intensity drug trafficking, right? So sounds like a lot when you say HIDTA, but when you think about it, it is areas where the cartels are operating. So Sinaloa cartel, for example, likes to move a lot of its supply through Arizona. Yeah. We saw the same thing in Texas with whether it's Sinaloa cartel or CJ&G, Jalisco Nuevo Generacion. So we're able to look at those areas, those corridors, and really help reinforce our law enforcement, let them know ONDCP issues these grants. We oversee both HIDTA and our drug-free community programs. Our drug-free community program, for example, works closely with our HIDTAs, and that assists communities with educating children. And we gave over $16.7 million. This year, we just issued those grants, $2 million of which went to Arizona. So we're very excited. And it helps with education. It helps with fostering community growth. So that way kids have something else to do other than hanging out on the streets, right? I want to see more of that. I want to do more of that. I want to be there for the kids. But as far as working together, our Homeland Security task forces, which under President Trump are now the most, I would think, most effective tool that we have in fighting the cartels. We have found a way to coordinate and integrate with our HIDAs, and as well as with all local and state and tribal law enforcement in an effort to go after the heads of the snake and not only take down the leadership within the cartels, but really go after them financially, target them on resources, ensure that we are delivering to the American people on the promise that the national security concern is protecting Americans first, but also a whole of Western Hemisphere. We can't protect our nation unless we're protecting our hemisphere, right? It's the new thing.
Totally right. I mean, I look at it, and so down in across from southern Arizona's border with Mexico, you actually have had some intra cartel fighting in the Sinaloas, and they've actually now they've resolved. They're made nice. The problem is when they make nice with each other, all of a sudden, and Arizona doesn't get the drone traffic, say that the Rio Grande Valley does, and Del Rio and those get. But what we get is, because we have vast, wide open areas, we're getting them. They're still back to smuggling, right? So we see this coming through across the border, but we know that across from Tijuana and San Diego, they're coming across in boats. And loads are being dropped by drones all over, and so it's really
it's having to hit them at every choke point, right?
Exactly. I mean, they're like a hydra, another head spouts up. But I would say this: we've seen dramatic interdiction record levels under President Trump, and I say that because we saw some interdiction under Biden, but they were not concerned with any kind of border trafficking.
No, they opened the border. There is no way other than to describe that the Biden policy was to leave the border wide open. I used to say that, is this policy a mistake? Where are they failing on their policy? I go, they're not failing at all. The Biden administration's policy was to open the border. Yeah. And when they opened the border, the floodgates opened. Hundreds of billions of dollars in drug and human trafficking, children being assaulted physically and sexually, children disappearing, women being raped. And I'm talking about the people that were coming in here illegally, not even the fact that when that border was left wide open and we weren't vetting people properly and they were pouring into the country, all the lives in the United States that were at risk from criminals and people that came through. I remember interviewing people, special interest aliens that came from as far away as Bangladesh or other areas of the world, Syria, Afghanistan, people that had absolutely no vetting whatsoever, coming across the border and then disappearing into the fabric of America without any way to trace their steps back. This is what we were dealing with and what we're still dealing with in the Trump administration. How do you find those people that had absolutely, there is no distinguishing marker to know where they went, and they're a threat to the United States? And by the way, if you even cared at all, and I tell this to Democrats all the time, or anyone for that matter that is upset about the immigration policy of shutting down the border, which, by the way, is just following the rule of law. There was no extraordinary action taken other than following the rule of law. But if you truly cared about human beings, you would want the border shut down. Who wants to hold a 15-year-old girl in your arms who's crying because she has been raped And now she has to go with Border Patrol, two strange men in a law enforcement uniform, who are good guys. They want to help her. She's terrified of men now. They have to take her to a hospital and to a facility to have her checked to make sure that nothing happened to her, that she doesn't have a venereal disease, that she wasn't, there's a whole list of after effects that happen when somebody is harmed. And so I spent so much of my time, so much of my career on that border, and the most humanitarian act that anybody could take was shutting that border down. Not only did it save lives in the United States and drop the movement of narcotics that were coming in to a rate that's over 60% now of fentanyl is not coming through that border, not coming through. So we're already saving lives there. But we're saving lives throughout the Western Hemisphere because now children are not being used by the cartels to bring criminals into our country for the most part, and we have now a rule of law, and that means something.
Yeah, and we could really talk all day about that because actually you and I have been down to the border many times.
So many times. That's how we became friends because we were down at the border taking care of business, actually exposing what was going on.
Yeah, and I can ditto everything you just said about the open border under Joe Biden versus where we stand today. Lives get saved because it's a deterrent when you have the rule of law. And the founders understood this pretty clearly. They said, in order to be a free people, you have to have the rule of law. You do. And without the rule of law, you'll never be free. And so I think that on this, I want us to end on a high note, understanding that you're doing a great job.
Glass half full.
Glass
I
half
believe
full.
it.
And you know what? The fact that we have more funds coming into places like the Haidas, you're seeing more cooperation, more collaboration, more than I've ever seen before, trying to stop this. Because if you remember, there's so many times that they'll just put silos. Everybody goes into a silo.
Right.
And we're seeing the dissipation, the silos, and more cooperation, collaboration. That's going to be a huge benefit for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if people want to go into a silo, I don't let them go into a silo. I end up knocking on their door and they're like, there's Carter again. She's knocking on our door. We got to get out of our silo. But look, we have right now in the White House the most consequential president in modern political history. And I don't say this lightly. I really believe that. I know that in my heart. The policies that are in place have changed the trajectory of our nation in the right direction. Could you have imagined what would have happened had it been somebody else, right?
I don't want to imagine that. We're trying to end on a high note, Sarah.
So I'm ending on a high note here. So we didn't end up with that. We ended up with this remarkable president, with this remarkable administration, with true American patriots like yourself, Congressman, who are fighting the fight, who believe in this nation and believe in our founding fathers. And we're going to survive this and so much more. This is just the beginning.
We'll not only survive, but we'll thrive and flourish. I really believe that. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I hope you've enjoyed today's live video episode of our podcast. And it's a semi-regular podcast, so be looking forward to the next time. Sarah, how do people follow you on social media?
You can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Truth Social, LinkedIn at ONDCP and at DrugZar47 and at Sara Carter DC. Yes,
we love, follow Sarah by all means, and you can follow me at Rep. Andy Biggs AZ. So thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time on What's the Big's Idea?